You're listening to the Empowered Divorce Podcast, where you practice being the chooser in your life again, one day at a time. Thanks for joining me. Hello, my amazing listeners. Welcome to part 2 of Victim to Chooser. Last week, as I mentioned, I had recorded an episode and it went way longer than I thought it was going to go. I had recorded that episode in 2 parts. And so it ended up just working out where I thought, you know what, we're going to split this one in 2. For those of you who listened to last week, I did offer you something to consider and do in between to practice recognizing if you are picking up those thoughts of victim and maybe holding on really tight. Maybe you're noticing that you're moving in and out of that victim and emerger space. Maybe you're recognizing, gosh, I thought I might still be there, but I'm realizing I'm not. Now you're celebrating. So whatever your experience was with that episode last week, this week, I'm going to play the rest of the recording here in just a minute where I go over reclaimer and chooser. Now, as always, these resources that I offer are only intended to help you, not use the resource against yourself. So please, no shame, no self-judgment, because there is no, like all you black and white thinkers, there's no good, bad, right, wrong. We are going to experience all of these different thoughts, but who you are intrinsically is not your thoughts. You're not your brain. You're not your body. You're not your emotions. Who you are is 100% of worth and value, no matter what. We're experiencing these different stages because of what we're thinking. There's purpose in every stage. This resource is to help you identify and become more aware of what stage you might be in and what stage you might be stuck in, and to help you move through it and forward and ultimately start becoming the creator and the chooser of your life. For those of you who are looking for that next level healing, for those of you who are looking for more resources like this, my Believing in You coaching membership is going to do the trick. I offer so many resources like this, worksheets, to help you become more aware of where you are at. And then we coach around those stuck points. I gave this to my groups and they were able to look at this and we slowed it down even more and they could recognize where they might be stuck. And then we were able to coach and process around that. My group members get access to Marco Polo in between those sessions. They have so much access to me. They get a discount on working with me one-on-one on brain spotting sessions. It's a fantastic opportunity to really take your healing to that next level. The more aware we become of our brain, our thoughts, how we're showing up, why we're getting stuck, the more we can heal, the more we can grow. I'm so much a believer of that growth mindset, and I've designed this membership to really help women grow and get unstuck in every possible way. So if you are interested in that membership, I have morning and afternoon classes on Wednesdays. Head over to the show notes to find out more information and to get your spot. All right, here are the next stages of reclaimer and chooser. Now, this one I love because I think that in order to really start being the chooser, really stepping into that agent power mode, like I call it, we need to reclaim some things that we've lost in that victimization. And one of the things that we lose that we always talk about is that trust. So again, to recap, victim is, I'm never going to trust anybody again. I don't trust anybody ever. And I don't even trust myself because why didn't I see this? Then you're emerging out of that a little bit. And it's like, okay, I'm learning to trust the patterns. I don't really trust me to know what to do with that. I don't trust my partner. I don't trust other people. For those of you who are dating, I don't trust you in dating, but in reclaimer, but I trust the patterns that I'm starting to see in this relationship. Reclaimer is I'm learning to trust my body. You are now connecting to your body. Remember, trauma disconnects the brain and body. It separates that. And depending on how long you have lived in this state of false reality, we become more and more disconnected from our bodies in order to survive. So reclaiming is so huge. We're reclaiming our sensitivity, our vulnerability, our intuition. We're reclaiming what our body is telling us and trusting our body, learning to trust what we sense and what our intuition tells us. Reclaimer, we are at this place where we now know that we can only control ourselves. I will only control myself is a reclaimer thought. Victim is if they would just, then I could. Emerger is, gosh, dang it, I really can't control him. Reclaimer is, I will only control me. Notice the focus and the shift of that locus of control is coming back towards you and less to the other person or the situation. Reclaimer is, I knew it. I knew it. I'm not crazy. When I'm doing these full therapeutic disclosures with clients, I can't help but have tears brought to my eyes in those moments where I hear my client exclaim out loud, I knew it, right? I knew it. This helps you reclaim your intuition again. It helps you realize you weren't crazy, that you did know, and that nothing really is wrong with you. You did know. You had someone in your life use abusive behavior and communication to keep you from that knowing that this wasn't a you problem. So you're starting to reclaim this sense again. And I'm not crazy is often what I hear in this reclaiming truth, right? Reclaiming knowledge, reclaiming the truth of the reality versus what you were told the reality was. Here in Reclaimer, it's, I can make good decisions. When we're in victim, we can't make any decisions. We're really stuck from making any choices at all. Emerger, it's like, yeah, I just don't even know how. I don't know how. I know I need to make a decision, but I'm just not quite sure what. We're a little afraid that we're going to get it wrong still. Reclaimer is we're recognizing and reclaiming our ability to start making choices. And even if the choice we make, this is where I love Vicky Tibble Palmer's Bill of Rights and how those first two are so powerful. I have the right to change my mind and I have the right to be wrong. When you're reclaiming your right to be wrong. So I can make good choices and I know it's a good choice because I'm not afraid to make a wrong choice either, because I know that I can always make another choice. So you're really teetering into the chooser, but you're reclaiming the sense of decision making. I think that's really the point that I want to make here is in Reclaimer, because victim, you want the other person to make the choice. Emerger, you're not really sure how to make a choice. Reclaimer, you're like, no, I can make choices. I can make decisions. I can change my mind in those decisions, but I can start making some decisions. I am worthy of healthy. Gosh, that's a beautiful thing to reclaim, isn't it? To reclaim that you're worth healthy. I get to decide what healthy is and isn't for me. So I was working with a client around this. I do this a lot with my clients who are not quite sure what healthy even looks like. And when you've been victimized, when you thought you knew what your relationship was, you thought things were maybe not perfect, but gosh, not to this level. Right now, it's like, well, I don't know what the hell healthy is. So you can get stuck in this state. Well, one of my favorite things to do is start having clients decide for themselves what healthy looks like, to really be imaginative and visionary on what your idea of healthy looks like. Just knowing that you can actually decide that. That's a thing, right? It was for me. I didn't know that I could decide what my relationship could actually look like. I was looking for other people to tell me what that looked like. And there's a lot of great advice. I've got great advice for my clients, like what healthy looks like. All of my favorite authors who have books that give suggestions of what healthy looks like. But ultimately, when we're talking about your romantic personal relationship, even the relationship with you, yourself, you get to decide what that looks like. In fact, you have to. In order for it to be sustainable, in order for it to align with your values, then we need to decide what that looks like. We equally need to decide what it doesn't look like. And when you can start reclaiming that, that prepares you to start being the chooser. My truth matters. So following along this idea of being victimized because you didn't have the truth, you don't know all the truth, you're starting to find maybe trickled truth emerge, or maybe there's still little trickles coming out, but you're starting to recognize, no, I do. I need to know the whole truth. Reclaiming you are, whether you're getting the truth from your partner or you're getting the truth because you're starting to trust your body and what your body knows about your lived experience. And I think this is a really important one to point out. I will let my divorce ladies know this all the time because a lot of them will never get full disclosure. So they're trying to find closure without full disclosure. And this is where your lived experience and being able to walk through that is really important. It's why I do the relational dynamic assessment with my divorce ladies who are out of the relationship, but we use that to help them reclaim their truth. So this matters. Your truth matters. What your lived experience through that matters, and owning that, claiming that your truth is really important. If you're working on the relationship, then the truth from your partner absolutely matters in order for the relationship to heal. When we're talking about your individual healing, your truth also matters and what you experienced. I do know what's best for me. Now, this one can seem a little hard. When I've given this thought to clients or they've gone over this section, this one stands out as being one like, ooh, but I don't really know. So that's okay. You might be in a merger here. Maybe you're like, well, I know that I don't want that and that's not healthy. And I know I deserve better, but I still am not quite sure I know what's best for me. And that's okay. When you continue to reclaim your voice, your space, your body, your sexuality, your ideas, your thoughts, your opinions, when you reclaim those step by step, little by little, you will start to believe that you do know what's best for you. You might not know what's best for anybody else. And a lot of times we're trying to ask other people what's best for us because we don't know. But when you're reclaiming yourself, your thoughts, your ideas, your opinions, this is part of it also. I'm reclaiming what I know is best for me. And I like to just add right now, not of all time, because it's going to change, but I know what's best for me just right now. That lives in this reclaimer stage. Okay, the next one, I will listen to my body's story. What I've been talking about, like now to help me decide what is true for me and what is my reality, I'm going to listen to my body. I'm not going to ignore my body. When someone says, when I feel that sense like something feels off, their words are saying one thing, but my body is saying another, I'm going to trust my body first. I'm going to listen to that. Especially with you when you are in a relationship with someone else and you're working on the relationship, they're still working on recovery. We're working on relational repair. One of my favorite quotes from my friend and colleague, Sarah Morales, is your sacred responsibility is to demand evidence that someone is changing. And we can't take someone's word that they're changing, especially when their words have been used to gaslight you. I think that's a really powerful point. And one of the things that we're looking for while we're waiting for that evidence, then our body is enough evidence. Our body is what we then believe until we have evidence. So that looks like you might be saying you're in recovery, or you might, well, I'll talk to my divorce ladies, like you might be saying that you're a great guy, that you don't have a pornography problem. But until I have evidence, it's my sacred responsibility to myself to trust my body until I have evidence. You're reclaiming your ability to trust yourself here. The next one, I know the difference between on my own and alone. Whether you're staying in the relationship or have left or leaving, this is a common fear of being alone, fear of being rejected or abandoned. When we can start to recognize the difference. I had a client that was like, well, I say a client, I've heard several times from different clients where I feel very alone in my relationship. They'll say, I feel very alone in my relationship, but I'm afraid to be alone. Like I'm married, but I feel very alone in my marriage. But if I leave, then I'm really alone and that feels worse. Totally makes sense. But when you are in reclaimer stage, you know the difference between being alone and on your own. Feeling lonely and being on your own. If you're planning on staying in the relationship or getting into a new relationship, part of the healthy coupleship is being on your own in a lot of different ways. We aren't conjoined at the hip. You can go and do something on your own and feel the support of your partner. That's actually really healthy in a relationship. Feeling lonely is a choice. Feeling lonely is an emotion that you actually get to choose. It doesn't have anything to do with your circumstance because you can feel lonely in the relationship. But when you understand, when you start to reclaim your identity, your independence, because you're working on creating healthy interdependence in your current relationship, or you want in the future a healthy interdependent relationship, is still requires you to reclaim your own independence, not conjoined, not with someone, not I am better when I'm with someone. I can only be my best self with someone. That is not the healthy independence that we're looking for. Okay, the next one is I am stronger than I thought. I love this one. And when I've shown this to my clients, this one comes up a lot and brings some tears. Like, I am stronger than I thought. If this one's resonating with you, just think back on a time in your life when you were in that hood where you didn't feel strong at all. Maybe you were told that you're not strong enough. Reclaiming your strength, reclaiming your ability to choose. That's in this section. Okay, the next one, I own my story despite what others think. Ooh, isn't this a huge one? Again, married or not, divorced, separated, either way, this is so important because how many people are going to have opinions or have already had opinions about your story, about your actions, whether maybe you're staying and you're being told you shouldn't stay. Maybe you're leaving and you're being told you shouldn't leave. Everyone's going to have an opinion about your story, about what you're choosing, about what's happening to you in your life. When you start to reclaim your truth, your story, your lived experience, and start to own that more for yourself, then what others think about that becomes less important, holds less weight than maybe that did when you were in victim and emerger stages. So that's a great way to gauge whether or not we're in reclaimer is, yeah, I've got some people barking at me and I have some people saying some things, but it's not holding as much weight. It's not maybe triggering me or throwing me into a panic. And then I feel like, oh, I don't know what I'm doing. You're right. I don't know what I'm doing. Reclaimer is, that's okay. You might not see why I'm making this choice. I know why I'm making this choice, and that's enough. Okay, the next one is I'm exploring and redefining who I want to be, not who I should be. And I'll add to that, not who I should be or who others think I should be or what I'm told that I need to be. Reclaimer is you're starting to explore. This comes with exploring your values, redefining, realigning, committing to your values is reclaimer. This is when I give a lot of my clients the value. Like I have a worksheet that I have them go through and they start reclaiming their values. They start getting to know who they are, reclaiming what they like, what they don't like, their interests, down to the food. Like we start whittling it down to everything, really reclaiming all things about themselves. Because again, trauma disconnects you. When you've lived in a false reality, you've been disconnected to who you are. You've maybe lost a sense of who you are. So in this stage, we're reclaiming all of that. That takes a lot of beautiful exploration, redefining, letting go of outside messages of what other people think, other systems, other societies, what they think you should be, how you should show up, or what you should do. We're letting all of that go. We're looking into ourselves here, and we're starting to reclaim that. This is where I give a lot of my clients the intimacy within workshop. It's self-paced and it goes through all of the different levels of intimacy, and they start to reclaim their connection to themselves first. That is so, so important. Okay. Oh, I love this one. I am not my trauma. When you can start really believing that you are not who you are intrinsically, who you were created to be, the you that is enough and whole, complete, just as you are, infinitely lovable, you are not your trauma. You experienced trauma as a human. This was something that you experienced. You didn't choose it, but someone else made choices with their agency that impacted you greatly, and it became something you experienced. But it did not lessen your worth or your value or your lovability. It can't. And when we're in reclaimer stage, we realize that. We start to separate our experience from our intrinsic worth and value. The next one, grief honors my loss, not decides my future. And I love this because remember, victim, we're not feeling anything really. We're numbing out. Emerger, we're feeling all the things. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm noticing all of my emotions. Here it is. Here it's coming. You might not be like feeling processing type of feeling that I talk about a lot. Remember, in emerger, we're starting to recognize the reality more. So lots of grief. And it just feels like it's everywhere. Grief is just everywhere. Well, reclaimer is you're actually processing grief and processing its emotions more. Grief does not decide your future anymore. Where I remember in Emerger, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm never going to be happy again, right? I felt grief. I felt depressed. I felt angry. I just felt like because grief was everywhere, then it seeped into my future. Reclaimer is you're actually starting to reclaim so many parts of you and put them in those healthy, proper places that you are seeing that you actually can start choosing a future. That grief isn't you. So just like you're separating your trauma from you, we're separating emotions from ourselves too. We're not so identifying and moralizing these emotions anymore. Grief now in a reclaimer is honoring what I've lost because I was victimized and I lost a hell of a lot. I'm looking at my grief now and seeing how grief is honoring all of those losses because it doesn't mean anything about me. I didn't do anything wrong. I didn't choose this. And grief isn't determining my future. The next one is boundaries are protecting me. Again, victim, no boundaries. Emerger, we're starting to see the purpose of them. Reclaimer, all right, now I have them and I'm using them to protect me as much as possible from that injury again. You're going to look at boundaries in a completely different way here in Reclaimer. You're holding the consequences here in Reclaimer. This is the completion of the boundary. Like, this is what's not okay, right? Because going back to, I decide what's healthy and what's not healthy in Reclaimer. And if you do the not healthy thing, then I will remove myself from the situation, the relationship, whatever. That's reclaiming your right, your boundaries, help protect that. And then the last one here that I'll mention in Reclaimer is I can feel my emotions. So feels too much, I can't. Emerger, I'm noticing all my emotions. Reclaimer is I can actually start to feel them in my body. I'm processing them a little bit more in my body. It feels not as dangerous in my body to feel my emotions. I'll do a lot of brain spotting with clients that are wanting to start actually process and feel their emotions. And we can do that in a really safe way because how brain spotting is set up, we can clamp the hose, the fire hose, so to speak, where it's not spewing out all over the place. So it helps them learn how to start reclaiming their emotions and feeling them without the fear of it spraying all over the place. Reclaimers, you're starting to lean into that. You're not afraid of uncomfortable because you're not identifying with uncomfortable. You're not making uncomfortable or hurt mean anything about you intrinsically anymore either. Okay, the last one, chooser. I told you I was trying so hard to make this short. It's probably longer than I wanted, but chooser. It's so hard because it's like every single thought, I'm like, I could do a whole episode on that. I could do a whole episode on that. Okay. Anyways, moving on. Chooser, the stage of chooser. Couple thoughts. Now, tracing the different stages with trust. Victim, I'll never trust again. Emerger, I am trusting the patterns that I now see. Reclaimer, I'm learning to trust my body. Chooser is I trust myself and I've got my own back. I like to add, because I do believe in a higher power, I like to add, I trust myself and I've got my own back and God's got my back. And I love that because when we can really trust ourselves and know that we've got our own back, it eliminates a lot of the fears that come up in these other stages when we're afraid of getting hurt again. Now, we know that because we can't control anybody else, that the opportunity as a human to be impacted it's there. We can't do anything about that, about what other people choose to do. But what we can do is trust our intuition, trust our sensitivity, trust our vulnerability, trust that we have boundaries, trust that we'll honor those boundaries, trusting our body. By doing all of these things, we are, in a sense, protecting ourselves from potential injury a hell of a lot more than in the space of I'll never trust anybody again. And it's interesting because that space feels really safe, right? In that victim, like, I'm never going to trust anybody again. And that's how I'm going to stay safe. It's actually not true. That's like one of the biggest lies because in that space, you're disconnected from yourself because you don't even trust yourself versus chooser where the potential of harm is still the same. And you're protecting yourself a heck of a lot more when you trust yourself, trust your body, trust your intuition, trust your boundaries, and that you'll honor them. Okay, the next one. What others think and feel about me is not my business. I love this one. I love this one so much. Byron Katie, I got this one from her. There's 3 types of business: your business, other people's business, and God's business. And what other people think and feel about you is none of your business. That's theirs. And I love that because when you really believe, when you choose to believe this, it frees up so much space that is being taken up trying to assume and figure out and noodle over what other people are thinking about you. And when you free up that kind of space, you can make a heck of a lot more awesome choices. So that is a chooser empowered thought. What other people think about you and feel about me is none of my business. My choices reflect my values. So reclaiming, remember, we're starting to reclaim, redefine our values. Chooser is we're now making choices based off of those values. Not what other people think we should value or what other people think we should do. We're not being driven by guilt or by people pleasing. We're being driven by our value system. The next one is I'm responsible for my happiness. This one is one of those that when I show my clients stands out to them as like, no, if I really believe that yet. Like I want to believe that I choose my happiness, but there's still some part that might be showing up here of like, yeah, but if this person or if this situation was better, then I could be happy. And this is where I just want to remind you that happiness is an emotion. It's not a state of arrival. I don't believe that we live in a state of happiness. I think that life is created meant to be 50-50, 50% positive, 50% negative. I think it comes that way. It was designed that way. Happiness, I believe, is an emotion that we can create and that we can choose to feel that in any situation. I think of Viktor Frankl and all of his writings and Man's Search for Meaning and the lessons that he shares there of being in the concentration camps where they've been everything has been stripped down and taken away from them. His powerful teachings around how he realized these people can take everything away, but they cannot take his thoughts away. And our thoughts are what create our emotions. That he realized that he can choose to think whatever he wanted, that he could then feel whatever he needed to feel to make it one more day. And that's what being a chooser is. That's what accessing your agency is. And it's so powerful to read his and other people's stories where, they literally have had everything taken from them and zero power. But look at the power of agency. I mean, he had people acting upon him, trying to take as much power away and took so much away when he was like, no, they can't take away my ability to think and feel. I held on to that like glue. And I really, truly believe that. And I think that falls into this chooser stage. I think that when you really believe that and practice that, you can get through anything that life that comes with part of the life of being a human, anything that life throws at you. You can consciously make a decision on how you want to think and feel about that. It doesn't mean you have to think happy, but it is available. And being a chooser knows that it is available. Okay, the next one. I am the creator of my life. You really do get to create, and it's because of that agency, because of that beautiful power of agency, you do get to create the life that you want. Victim mentality doesn't believe that. Victims thinks that other things, other situations, other people need to do something different in order for me to be able to have the life that I want. Circumstances need to change in order for me to have the life that I want. When we live in victimhood, then you can see how you will never actually get what you want. Getting what we want, creating what we want does not always, in fact, I don't believe it ever comes without zero negative emotion. I think that that's part of being a chooser is that you are actually welcoming these emotions. It's like going back to emerger where anger is an action emotion and we want to use that to move us forward. Well, the same thing with all these other emotions. Emotions are neither good or bad or right or wrong. That falls into this chooser thinking stage as well. It's let me get curious about these emotions and see what they're showing me and telling me. Are they useful? Are they helpful? Do they help me move forward? And are they helping me choose the experience that I actually want? Because you really are the creator of your life. I nurture myself so that I can help others. Isn't this such a good one? How many of you believed that your nurturance, your care came second or last or not at all? So being a chooser, you start to recognize that, you know what, in order for me to actually choose to serve and choose to help, I have to choose me first. I have to fill my bucket so that I can start helping other people along the way. And I think that's a beautiful part of our healing is being able to reach out and serve others. But the source of that service needs to come from a place where we are already filled with self-love and appreciation. Otherwise, when we serve and we're depleted, that's where resentment and martyrdom come. And that brings us back to victim. There's a lot of victim people that can do a lot of serving, but there's expectations attached. If the person doesn't receive the service, it can feel resentful. When you fill your own bucket, when you nurture yourself first, then that reaching out hand to other people is something that comes from a beautiful space. And you can feel all of the beautiful emotions that come with that, despite how that service is received. Because going back to the other thought, what others think and feel about your service is none of your business. So you're able to help from a completely different space. It's not self-sacrificing to your detriment anymore. Okay, the next one, everything that happens is for my growth. This one was one of those that, like, I remember my therapist offering me this and being like, yeah, freaking right. And that is not true. I don't believe that for 1 second. I didn't want to believe that everything that had happened to me was for my growth. This is the growth mindset. You've heard me talk about this before. Those of you on my Choose to Be podcast have heard Alana and I talk about this before, where we want to develop this growth mindset where we're always learning and developing in our own locus of control. That's why there's no arrival. There can't be an arrival when we're always looking for opportunities to learn and to develop and to grow. For me, it releases some of the pressure to get to this certain space that if I get there, then I will be what? Enough? Worthy? Valuable? Yeah, no. If I'm already enough and worthy and valuable, then I can continue to grow and choose and make mistakes and learn and grow and choose over and over and over. And I believe that is something that is I believe that's an internal principle. So believing that everything that happens is for my growth no longer holds me captive to what this person in my life took away and chose to do to me. I get to make meaning of that experience for myself. My abuser no longer gets to make meaning, no longer gets to determine what that means, because I get to determine that. I get to decide how I want to grow from that. That puts me back in the driver's seat, and that is a chooser. Okay, the next one. I live in power, not fear. Victimhood is driven by fear. There's so much fear. We can get stuck there because of all of the fear. Emergers, we're leaning into that a little bit. We're questioning some of the fears. We're deciphering the difference between present fear and future fear. And reclaimer, we're reclaiming more of our power. And in this chooser stage, you are living in your empowerment. When fear shows up, doesn't mean that we're not going to experience fear, but when fear shows up, it is not what we base our choices around. We're basing our choices on that sense of empowerment and agency, not fear. Again, doesn't mean you're not going to have it, but it's not how we base our choices. The next one, everything works out as it should. I cannot tell you how many times I will show this to clients. There's like a scoff after that, like, yeah, right. So that just came out of your mouth. Totally get it. And that's okay. I've shown this to clients a few months later, and they're like, okay, I did not believe that before, but I actually can start to see how things are actually working out as they should, especially because they let go of controlling it. Okay, the next one. I am the author of my today and my tomorrow, not my trauma, not the person who victimized me. Nothing and no one gets to be the author of my story. No one gets to be the author of your story, of your today, of how you live today in the present and how you envision to live tomorrow. The next one, no, there is no limit to my potential. It goes along with there's no arrival. Well, there's no limit to your potential. You can continue to do and do and do and do and create and try new things. One of my coaches, she is just such an example of this. She is always trying new things. She just picked up surfing. And I mean, she just turned 50 and she is learning how to surf. She's always wanted to. This is just a classic example of there is no limit to potential. She is such an inspiration to me on always being able to learn something new and grow your potential no matter what, no matter how old, and no matter what people say. She is really living in this space of chooser. And you can too when you believe that there is no limit to your potential, that you can create and create and create and do all the things that you put your mind and heart to doing. Okay, the next one is I can find a way because I have options. Noticing the drastic difference between victim, where you don't believe you have any options at all, where chooser stage is you do see options. You know that being a chooser requires options. Having agency requires options. And when one way that you want to, but this is the option I want, right? I'll hear that, but this is what I want to have happen. And if it's not happening, then the brain goes to do what brain does and shuts down and goes, nope, no options, because we only want this option. Well, being a chooser understands that the brain is going to do that. You expand your mind and believe that no, there is always a way. And let me widen those blinders that limit my vision. Let me widen that gap a little bit, see what other options are available. It might not be my ideal option at the time. There were a lot of times after my divorce where things were happening, or I wanted child support to be paid, right? And I'm like, no, there's no other option. Like that has to be paid or I don't survive. My brain was really very limited and shutting down. And yet I didn't have control over that. That wasn't being paid. So I can do what? Stay victim, right? I can stay victim, be like, well, I can't do anything because that option isn't happening. And that's the only way. Stepping into chooser is like, yeah, this would be easier. I wouldn't have to work so many long freaking hours, literally scrubbing my fingers to the bone with my housekeeping business. I wouldn't have to do that if that option was available to me, but I don't have control over that, unfortunately. And neither did the legal system, unfortunately. So I, as a chooser, need to start creating other options, looking into other options. It was hard. It wasn't positive rainbows and butterflies. Being a chooser doesn't mean everything's peachy. It means I leaned into the uncomfortable. I leaned into the uncomfortable and went and knocked doors in neighborhoods with my flyers, trying to get business, right? That was uncomfortable. That was weird and awkward and super vulnerable. That was me being a chooser to create new options. And so that's this space is I will find a way because I know that I have options. Okay, I am grateful for just a couple more here. I am grateful for what I've learned. I remember someone standing up in a congregation and making a comment about grateful for trials, and I wanted to vomit. It was everything I think I did leave, but it was just bleh. Right? In this space of chooser, because you are no longer identifying with your trauma, because you believe that you are of worth and value no matter what, because you are starting to recognize that you are human. And as human, you are exposed to trauma when other people misuse their agency. And you get to choose how you respond. You get to choose how you want to protect. You get to choose what you do with that and how you move forward. When you do the work, you grow. You grow, you learn along the way. I can speak for myself, and I know that that a lot of my clients share this sentiment, but I know myself in a way that I know I would never have if it had not been for what I have experienced. Betrayal trauma uprooted even the abuse that I wasn't aware of what I was experiencing. It uprooted so many things throughout my entire life that I had experienced that I was very unaware of how that was impacting me and how it was showing up in my life because of those impacts. I am very grateful that my forest, so to speak, was burned to the freaking ground and I got to rebuild and reclaim and see and decide and choose who I want to be in this life and how I want to show up. I'm show up differently than I ever have before. And my clients who have gone through these different stages and are practicing to be the chooser in their life, I've heard them say the same thing. It's a beautiful, beautiful process. It's why I love the aspen tree. The aspen tree has an incredible root system where it is networked together with other trees. So when you see an entire aspen tree forest burned to the ground, they regrow because of their root system. And I identify with that so deeply that your root system, who you are intrinsically, is not destroyed. And you get to rebuild and regrow in the way that you choose and that you want. When you step into this empowerment, when you step into your agency, and you will become grateful for the way that you have grown versus the way that you were maybe told to grow. Okay, the next one, I can make requests with my people. I love this because how many of you are starting to realize that you don't have as many support people that you thought you would, that who you want around you or who you thought you wanted around you aren't really the people you want around you anymore. I was running a group, one of my Believing in You groups today, and one of my ladies made this comment. She's like, yeah, going through this, your social circle whittles down quite a bit. And yeah, it does. A lot of times you whittle it down quite a bit because you're realizing just how many people you were surrounded with that were emotionally mature and or harmful to the relationship. As you start to become more emotionally mature, as you start to expand your awareness and become healthier, then it is going to create relational tension in all of these different relationships. And so you whittle those down and you start to have a really close knit of people that are safe. These are those people that you can make requests with. You don't necessarily need boundaries because of the level of honesty and trust and authenticity and vulnerability that is with these few group of people. Then it is safe to make a request because those people want to meet your needs. That is a really beautiful space to be in and to have those people identified in your life. Makes it a little bit easier to associate with other people where you're like, yeah, you know what? I love being around these other people, maybe even family members. There's boundaries there. There's certain topics that I'm not going to talk about with them. And that might be your relationship, right? You might be realizing that there's certain people in your life that you just can't talk about your relationship with. And so they aren't your close knit, but they're still a part of your life. And that's okay. We just have a little bit more limits. As a chooser in this stage, you're determining what that looks like for you, maybe for the first time. And it's pretty empowering. Okay, I am not my body, my brain, or my emotions. I just experience them. I've mentioned this a couple times throughout this episode, but what you are, who you are, is so separate from your brain, body, and emotions. And when you really believe that and see that, then all of the experiences that you have, even the unpleasant ones, even the hard ones, even the ones that are really, really, really painful, you are no longer making those mean something about your worth, your lovability, or your value and enoughness. When you have an intense, hard emotion, when you feel anger, you're not identifying with the anger. You know that I'm experiencing anger and therefore I can get curious about it. I know I'm not my body. My body doesn't define my worth and value and my enoughness. I am merely experiencing life in this body. And my body is ever changing and it's supposed to be. And this is why we don't want to identify with the body, because we don't want to identify with anything that changes, because when it changes, then it might change our identity, our value, our worth. We've got to be really careful of what we're identifying with, right? And our body is always going to be changing. So who you are is not your body. You're not your thoughts. You're going to have over 60,000 thoughts a day. You are not your thoughts, but you can be the chooser of them. Be curious of those thoughts and then consciously choose what you want to think. That's how you become in charge of them. But you are not your brain. You are not your emotions, and you are not your body. And then for those of you who are listening to me on my Empowered Divorce podcast, you know that I end every episode with, you are the chooser of your life and you can create the life that you want. And then I end it with, because you can. And that is the last thought in the chooser stage. Because you can. You can create, you can choose, you can define what healthy looks like for you. You can say no. Because you can. This is your right as a human. This is your right as you claim your agency. All right. I hope this helps. I hope this helps you to gain a better sense of where you might be living and stuck. Hopefully this helps give you some ideas of where you might want to start practicing and leaning more in towards. More than anything, I hope that you can see that being the chooser is possible, that what that life can look like is possible for every single one of you. If it feels way too impossible, then reach out to a professional. Find someone to help support you in these different stages to keep you moving. If you find that you're pulling some thoughts from every single one, brilliant. Just notice that, acknowledge that, question it, see some of these thoughts in these other stages, question if they're serving you still. Maybe you can choose to let them go and pull up another thought that might be in that reclaimer or chooser section. The link to the whole list will be in the show notes for you. And if you have any more questions around it, then head over to amiewoolsey.com and you can ask me some questions there. But as always, you are the chooser in your life and you can create the life that you want because you really can. Take care, everybody.